G'day, Steve here, Woodworking Masterclass. I thought I'd just do a quick one and share some of my thoughts on book matching. For those of you who don't know, book matching is when you get a piece of timber, such as this piece, and you cut it down the middle, and when you open it up, you get a copy of both sides. So it's book match, it's like a book. What this side looks like, that side looks like. All right, here's another bit. So rip that up the middle and you can see that pattern. It's like looking in the mirror. And a lot of people absolutely love it. I used to love it too. Veneering, you see it a lot in book matched doors. I've seen panels in cabinets, solid panels in cabinets, book matched. And it's all very lovely, but there are some drawbacks. So what I wanted to do today was just talk to you about why it's not maybe the best option and offer some alternatives for book matching in solid. There are still some drawbacks with book matching in veneer, but they aren't as great as book matching in solid, and I'll explain why. All right, when you machine, it doesn't matter if you're using a joint, a thickness, a hand plane, whatever, you always go uphill. Okay, so you grain, let me see if I can find the bit. Here we go. There you go. So, if your timber has the grain running like this, and you were going to machine this part here, you would go that way. The reason being you're going uphill. And what you're doing is actually knocking the grain off whilst it's being supported by the grain behind it. So when I cut this bit off, it's being supported by this bit of grain. Now if you go the other way, if you were to do this side and plane this way, you're actually going against the grain, so you're pulling this piece of grain away from this piece. And that's when you get tear out, when you get rips in your timber. Not all timber does it, but 99.9% of timber does it. And it looks unsightly, and if you're working to a precise thickness of your work and you get tear out, there's not much you can do. You can bog it with dust and glue. I don't like doing that. You can wax it, you can accentuate it, you can put resin in it. Now I've started working with resin now, that's exciting. You can put a wood filler in it, but it's still better, instead of having to fix it, not having the problem in the very first place. Excuse me. So what happens with book matching, if you look at this, the grain on this piece here is actually running that way. It's starting here, and if I follow that piece of grain up, it goes to here. So I would plane in that direction. Now what happens when you cut it, Now what happens when you cut it, all of a sudden we're planing uphill. Now we've reversed the grain. The grain is now running this way. So it means we have to plane this board that way. However, if you look at this piece, and I'll turn it around, it is still running this way, or if you prefer, that way. So this one I've got to plane this way to be uphill with the grain, but this one I've got to plane that way. Now where the problem comes in, as if you hadn't already worked it out, if you book match something like that, you'll notice those arrows are going against each other. So effectively what happens if you put that into a jointer, once you've got your board or top or whatever it is together, and you put it through a planer or a joint, not a joint, well, a planer, a joint, a thicknesser, you're going to be going with the grain on one board and against the grain on the other. So you're going to get tear out on one side. The other thing is chatoyance, which again is related to the grain. If you look up with the light on this board, this one appears a bit darker. If I turn it around this way, it'll be the same colour as that. And get up there. There you go. That's the same colour. And I do that, it's the same colour all the way up the piece of timber. Yet if I turn this around and we have book matched, you'll notice as we go up, but this one here is actually darker, because the light is hitting the grain this way and glancing off and giving you a beautiful sheen and a nice reflection. This one, the light source is going into the end grain of the grain and therefore is dulling it, and you get a matte finish. If you have a look at anything that's been veneered, particularly, and it's book matched, you put a light to it and you'll find one part will flash and one part will be dull. And then you change the light source 180 degrees and it'll swap. All of a sudden, that side that was dull will now be bright, and the side that was bright is now dull. And that again is down to the grain. So that's the main reasons I don't like book matching. Look, book matching looks lovely, it really does. If you're in a room with an even light source, you won't notice it. But most places, especially if you're making a table or a bench top or something like that, or a cabinet, it is near a window and you get light, or you've got lights in the room, and it just, I don't know, takes away from the effect. Very pretty, but aesthetically, not right. Not when you look at the light that's coming off it. So, what to do? There is another one called slip match. Book match is when we do that. Now, what happens, the grain changes direction. So when you machine it, if it's glued together, it looks nice because you've got these patterns lining up nicely, but then you're going to get tear out in one piece. But if you do slip match, which is you cut it like this, but you just pull it off, you see, you can get almost the same effect. It depends on the grain pattern, but that way the grain is running in the same direction. Now that's called slip match as opposed to book match. So that's it for the moment anyway. This is Steve pulling the shed door down and saying, remember, keep it sharp, but more importantly, keep it safe. Look after yourself, be kind to each other, and I look forward to having your company in one of the workshops, at one of the workbenches very, very soon.